YouTube. Finish Sopranos. And then, finish that. And, record. Edit. You know what we should talk about today? Barry was such an unexpected delight to have stumbled on, wow, I guess 2 years ago now? I do have a backlog. I remember hearing the premise of the show beforehand, that it's about a Marine who was manipulated into becoming a hitman trying to start a new life as an actor, and honestly, I thought it sounded boring as hell. I guess I had the impression it would be one of those explorations of PTSD and reintegration that always read like empathy porn for war criminals, but oh my god, is it not that? Barry is the most brutal, merciless deconstruction of the mythology surrounding America's armed forces that I've ever seen in a popular TV show. Beyond Black Mirror, depicting Gen X and millennial veterans of war as pliable morons at best and sociopathic murderers at worst. And I really didn't think this would be, like, a controversial reading of the material. I mean, at one point, a guy wearing dog tags unloads on a bunch of cars with a heavy machine gun because he's spraying ammo at a bad guy on a motorbike. Replace the words bad guy with terrorist, and I think you see what they're going for here. But I guess that's a hotter take than I thought, because I tried to post about this several times on the Barry subreddit while I was drafting this video, and I am not exaggerating when I say that every single post that so much as hints at a criticism of the US military or its allies gets taken down. Eventually, I messaged the moderators to ask what's up, and they denied having any knowledge of it, then banned me from the sub. So stay tuned for that follow-up. The show's about so much more than just the military, though. My one-line description goes, Barry is a darkly comedic morality tale about how actors and narcissists both learn to simulate empathy. Barry Berkman is very much a protagonist in the tradition of Tony Soprano or BoJack Horseman or even Rube Bennett. People we see do horrible things, from literally the first scene of the first episode in this case, but who gaslight the audience through a combination of charm, vulnerability, and a certain desire for self-improvement.
I'm done, Fuchs. Starting now.
You're only my ghostwriter starting now. Starting now.
Starting now.
Starting now.
Starting now.
I found Barry just before the final season came out, so I was able to pretty much do the whole thing in one stretch. Actually, kind of an unpleasant coincidence, I started the show just a few days after a man named Jordan Neely was murdered by a deranged ex-Marine while riding the New York subway. And the circumstances of his death bore a chilling similarity with the ending of the third episode, where Barry uses a chokehold to strangle a guy named Paco just a few feet away from people who could have potentially intervened. It made the whole scene pretty disturbing, to be honest, but it was sort of meant to be, and this is actually a phenomenon the show reflects upon in that same episode.
Sally and I did 6 episodes of this show about roller derby together. Sally here was the star. You never heard of it. It never aired. It was really good. We just got a little unlucky with the timing of some world events.
Oh, that's too bad. What was it called?
Bonnie and the Boston Bombers.
Oh, shit.
Barry doesn't so much deconstruct our image of the heroic American soldier, all bravery and corn-fed innocence, as it does flay it, tearing away the painted-up Hollywood face and forcing us eyeball to eyeball with the bloody reality underneath. This disconnect is most plainly addressed in the scene where Barry describes his first kill to Cousineau's acting class, in how his memories play out versus how the other students imagine the scene, how American soldiers actually conduct themselves in war zones versus what civilians back at home think is happening.
And I asked if we should radio Lieutenant Hubble.
Should we maybe radio Lieutenant Hubble, sir?
Fuck no, you don't gotta radio him, man. Take the shot, dude.
You killed them both, soldier.
I killed him. I killed someone. Oh my god. Oh god. I killed someone.
Oh, you fucking kidding me? He got him.
Both of them?
Smoke both those pieces of shit. I was gonna take the bib off and forget it.
Very bad.
Barry,
Barry. Is that what really happened?
But what I want to focus on here in particular is how Barry soaks up the praise and adulation of the other men in his squad and the effect this would have on him going forward.
It was the first time I ever felt a sense of purpose, a sense of community. First time I killed someone, it was the best day of my life.
Far more than a love of acting, or his friends, or a genuine desire to improve himself, this constant need for praise and affection is the real motivator for everything Barry does throughout the series. And I think the show is saying something very sharp here about why a lot of people really choose to become soldiers. I mean, people join the military for a lot of different reasons. They'll do it for financial security, or to impress their families, or to escape their families, or just for the opportunity to go perform violence. But a really common one you hear from soldiers is that they joined up to serve their country, and you know that's such bullshit. You're not serving your country, you're serving the people who are fleecing your country. If you're a member of America's armed forces, your job is to use military equipment that's more expensive than it is functional to suppress people 90% of you would never have the nuts to face on equal terms in their own land, so an extremely outdated component of America's energy sector can maximize its profits. You do not protect me or anyone else in this country from harm. In fact, you are part of something that is a constant, massive drain on financial resources that could otherwise be used to improve the quality of life for Americans suffering at home. But the truth is, people don't really become soldiers because they want to serve their country. You want to serve your country, become a mailman. People join the military because they want to be seen as serving their country, specifically in a heroic way that other people will respect and admire. The military recruits directly out of high school because this is the age at which we basically have the physique of an adult but lack the wisdom and life experience to know when we're being tricked or manipulated. That's also why it's one of the only jobs you can actually go to jail for quitting. A lot of soldiers are tricked. They have to be, because war is a fundamentally immoral and irrational practice which only benefits the ruling class. And you're thrust into this environment where almost everyone else you live and work and spend time with is also in the military, and you all have this mutual investment in rationalizing or justifying the overall experience that people in civilian life simply couldn't understand, not realizing that you're the one developing a skewed perspective. Now, as a general point of principle, I think people who are tricked should be pitied, and they should have the chance to be understood. But admired? Well, that really depends on what you do and on what you did.
Like, Lady Macbeth thought that she can kill whoever she wanted to kill to be in charge and then just move on, but she can't. You know, like, because once you start killing, you can never just go back. That's what the stain is. She's stained forever.
I'm not sure that's true.
No, it is. Her soul is fucked. As well as Macbeth's.
Well, actually, he's more fucked, don't you think? I mean, she just ordered the murder, but he actually carried that shit out.
Right, but it was her idea, though, you know, like, so she made him do it.
So what, so he's off the hook?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's gonna be messed up for life.
Did you read the end of the play?
Hey, whoa, he's a murderer.
No, he was following orders. Sometimes you just have to shut up and do your job.
I think there's a certain mentality a lot of soldiers develop when they're at war, where the consequences are both greater and lesser than they are in civilian life, and that if you just look out for each other and stay alive, you'll be able to get home, where the rules that are supposed to keep us all safe will apply again. The thing is, anywhere you go in the world is home to somebody, and those rules never really stopped applying. So, depending on what you did, it may well be that there is no getting home. And I don't just mean that in the Tim O'Brien scouring of the Shire, you can't go home again kind of way, where no soldier ever fully returns to the reality that existed before they went off to war. When I was born, this world was the size of a basketball. Now it's the size of a baseball. When my generation dies, it'll be the size of a BB, and it's not the little fantasy playground American soldiers seem to think it is. The internet and social media are only going to continue permeating our lives, our careers, and our global culture. And someday, your niece or your nephew or some distant cousin or one of your grandkids is going to take an Ancestry.com style DNA test or have their blood drawn for a genetic screening or something, and their results will go into a database, and then everyone will know that you were there when somebody was raped or murdered or kidnapped or some artifact was stolen from a museum or somebody's house in Iraq or Afghanistan, however many decades ago it will have been by that point. The consequences of our actions always catch up with us, or at least the thesis of Barry is that they should. Being seen as a good or well-liked person is extremely important to Barry. It's probably why he joined the military, it's what made him so easy for Fuchs to manipulate, and it's what drew him into acting after he spent a little time in Cousineau's class. It's why he forgave Fuchs when he was at his lowest and had nobody else, and why he screwed him over and left him in prison without a second thought when he saw the opportunity for a more favorable life with Sally. When he makes the decision, we see that image of himself as a little boy from the day he met Fuchs overtaken by a line of people all clapping in unison at what's implied to be the wedding of his and Sally's child. All of Barry's fantasies about a successful or happy future center around this in some way. Children who look up to him with shelves full of entertainment awards in the background, John Hamm admiring his house and the golden key around his neck. Conversely, the thing that will make Barry lose his composure every time is being seen for who and what he is, a narcissist and a murderer. He shouted at the acting class over themes of morality in Macbeth that he took personally. He dissolved sobbing onto the ground like a child when Albert caught him disposing of a body. And even looking back at the murder in Korngal, if you watch his face, it really seems like it's the rejection of his friends, now looking at him with disgust and calling him a psycho that upsets him more than the fact of actually having killed an innocent man. When he and Sally are putting on that play about leaving her ex-husband, Cousineau tells him that to get into the headspace of a domestic abuser, he needs to recall a time when he got angry, lashed out and hurt someone, then felt regret. And the two memories he recalls are the murder in Korngal that got him kicked out of the military and killing Janice at Cousineau's lake house, which kind of recontextualizes that scene when you think about it. When Barry killed Janice Moss, it's played like this agonized decision he made because he was backed into a corner and it was either this or prison. Which, to an extent, is true. I mean, he could have just run when he realized she was onto him. But what this scene tells us is that it also made him angry when Janice said they weren't the same and called him a murderer, as angry as when he killed the man he thought shot Albert. Barry wants to believe that he's better than Sam, but he's actually worse. And I think the reason Sally changed her scene at the last moment is because she sensed there was something off about Barry after she slapped him and thought he was about to go full BoJack on her if they did the original version. Barry keeping his cool and trying to reason with Janice before he pulls the gun he'd planted and shoots her is no different than Sam, presumably maintaining his composure with Sally and swallowing his anger until they were alone together.
Why are we dancing with that guy tonight?
Ken, he's just a friend, you know?
Everybody was looking at you. It was embarrassing. I didn't like it. You look like a whore.
We're not the same, Barry. Because I'm a cop. And you're a fucking murderer.
When Barry murders Chris in cold blood, then uses his turmoil over the experience to improve his acting, this is the show's criticism of the way Americans will kill people and destroy things in other countries, then come home and make these absurd movies about how brave and tormented they are for doing it all. I think I first realized how extensive the show's commentary on acting was going to be when we get to the culmination of that whole sequence, with Sally doing the soliloquy from the end of Macbeth.
You see that guy out there on his phone? That's Daniel Meldman from Gersh. I invited him, and he came. He was Emma Stone's agent before she got too big for him and fired him. Look, he's here to see me, but if I don't do well, it's over for me. He'll never sign me. I'll never get him to work for me, and I'll certainly never get to fire him. So please, 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 just give me something to work with. Can you do that?
Sorry, what?
Fuck.
Sally has this really irritating habit of projecting the responsibility for her successes or failures onto other people, but actors who share a scene together do build off of each other in a way that can elevate both performances.
You're going to say something to Sally, she's going to repeat it back to you, you're going to say it back to her. Now, the words will stay the same, but you will change.
I love you.
I love you.
I love you.
Okay, stop. All right. You're saying it like you mean it. She's saying it like, get the hell out of here. You have to listen to the way she's talking to you with her soul. Go. love you.
I love you.
I love you. All right, now adapt, adjust. Look at her. All right? It's hopeless, Barry. Give it the fuck up. I love you.
I love you.
I love you.
An actor should always be trying to bring something new to a performance. And, you know, Shakespeare, people have been doing these scenes for hundreds of years, on top of which Sally picked basically the most overdone, recognizable scene in one of his probably 2 or 3 most famous plays.
Do you know how many greats have died on that hill? Orson Welles, for one.
Oh, for God's sake.
Lord Richard Harris, the great Burt Lahr, Sally. This is reckless.
So she kind of backed herself into a corner, and of course puts the onus for whether or not she can get out onto Barry, her scene partner with exactly one line.
The Queen, my lord, is dead.
This is the kind of line that most people probably think of as perfunctory, something you need to move a character from point A to point B in a story, but really not a whole lot to work with. But Barry does this real actor stuff and connects with the humanity of the scene, really putting himself in the headspace of a person having to tell somebody that their spouse is dead. And to get there, he imagines what it must be like to tell Chris's wife out of the clear blue sky that her husband is gone, and what it must be like for her, in turn, to tell their child. And it works! It propels Sally into that same place where she couldn't quite get on her own, and she does something with the part that makes everybody sit up and take notice, reminds us why the emotions of Shakespeare's work are timeless.
My lord, the Queen is dead.
She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow. And tomorrow. And tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time.
Got a girl.
And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death.
Sally is as much of a narcissist as anyone else in the show, but what makes her a little more redeemable is the way it's framed as an extension of her overall creative integrity. When she spoke up in the writer's room for the new Medusas and criticized the showrunner, actually got him to rethink his storytelling, everyone is exchanging these looks like, somebody had to say it, but I can't believe it was the new girl. We frequently see her turn down lucrative opportunities in the film industry to pursue work of more artistic significance, and when she finally gets her own show, the reason it does so well critically before being immediately canceled is that she built it around a specific artistic vision rather than algorithmic success. Whereas Natalie just wrote down everything the executives at Banshee said make a show successful, then built her show around that and stuck it into the slot that Joplin had just vacated.
Don't we need time to get word of mouth?
Oh, the algorithm takes word of mouth into account. But it considers other things too. For instance, if viewers see someone eating dessert within the first 2 minutes of the episode, they almost always finish the entire season.
Always.
Oh, and it's not just dessert. The same goes for Central Park, Kittens, Dev Patel.
So you have your own show?
Yeah.
What's it about?
I play a single mom. I have a cupcake store with my daughter in Central Park.
What's it called?
Just Desserts.
Sally flips out on her in the elevator like she's demonically possessed, and when Natalie leaks the footage and she spirals off even more on her agent, there's a deliberate visual motif with Sally backing into the darkness that we see used in a very specific way throughout the show, and mirrored when Barry steps out of the darkness to greet her after escaping prison. But the reason she ran away with him instead of cashing in on her elevator video is that she would rather leave show business altogether than practice her art in an inauthentic way. And she wanted to be the star.
It's not like your career's over. If you wanted, you could have a reality show or a podcast, and you would make more money than God.
You know what? Just look at me and do this.
Sister, no. It is I who will bear this burden. I am not a foolish girl. I am a brave woman. And I care nothing of death. I will gladly lay this body into the fires of hell if it means that future generations might live and prosper. For that is my lot.
I remember pausing the episode when this happened and saying out loud, she is not going to try and snake her student's part. And then I noticed the episode title that popped up when I paused HBO Max was called It Takes a Psycho.
That was unreal.
Thank you.
Now, if I could just get that to come out of that.
Money.
Money.
Okay.
The first time I noticed that motif of a character stepping in or out of darkness was at the end of season 2, after Barry has his little tantrum killing spree in the monastery. He comes back to himself after Fuchs gets away and realizes the extent of what he did, including killing that Chechen kid who looked up to him, but was apparently too stupid to follow basic instructions.
You lose your focus, you give the other guy a chance to fire, you're dead! Kill!
The episode is called Berkman Angle Bracket Block, which you could initially read as an arrow symbol, representing Barry's transition into his ideal self, but by the end of the episode when we see him walking into the darkness surrounded by corpses, we realize it's the opposite. This is the mathematic symbol meaning greater than. The episode title is Berkman Greater Than Block, and it's about his true, uncontainable self erupting to the surface. Season 3 starts out with an episode called Forgiving Jeff, which opens on Barry eating a donut while a man is crying and begging for forgiveness off screen.
Grab your toolbox. I want to cut off his eyelids.
His eyelids?
I want to watch him suffer.
Aside from being a reference to the first episode of CSI Miami, cutting off Jeff's eyelids represents how the audience is forced to view Barry by this point in the story. He's back to doing hits now and doesn't seem at all bothered by killing people. He/we no longer have these rationalizations to hide behind about trying to do better. Further characterized throughout the season by a lot of close-up shots on Barry's face during his ugliest moments, this is the show forcing us to see Barry for who he is, cutting our eyelids off so we can't close them.
Hey, I think we're gonna call this off.
What, no eyelids, just shoot him?
No, I don't want him dead. Thank you.
I thought you said you wanted to watch him suffer.
I know, but, he's asked for my forgiveness. You know, he made some valid points. So, I'm forgiving Jeff.
You're forgiving Jeff?
I'm sorry I fucked you. He's sorry he fucked my wife. You know, and she's no saint either, okay? There's a whole history we don't need to get into. I think I just overreacted. There's no forgiving Jeff!
And this is the show telling us that once you start killing people, you can't just turn around and live a normal life like nothing happened. The humor of Barry is outrageous, like right up in your face with the laughs, but it's also extremely subtle and extremely textured in its writing. I love this scene where Barry's raiding the Bolivian stash house with Taylor and he notices equipment that's used for torturing people, and then a moment later we see a sign that says "Keep door closed because of cats." There's so much darkness and so much humanity side by side with each other in this show. It's funny, but with an undeniable pathos. This scene where Hank is trying to break out of his chains while we're listening to some kind of large mammal killing and eating his two flunkies in the next room was so horrific, but I legit had tears running down my face and stomach cramps. I was laughing so hard. There's a sad parallel with Hank and Cristobal, where Cristobal's father-in-law tells him in the 3rd season that either Cristobal has to kill Hank or he's going to kill Cristobal. And right before Barry blows the house up, Cristobal, who did not know that was going to happen, looks his boss right in the eye and says, "You're just gonna have to kill me then."
Well, must be true love.
Mátalo! Hey!
Turning Wi-Fi off.
All right, sounds like we were successful. Is there anything else I can help you with today?
Being forced to choose between your family and your partner is something that a lot of queer people are faced with. But when Hank is given more or less the same choice in the final season, he lets Cristobal walk right into his own death, and I think the reason Hank chose his family in the end is because they accepted him for who he is in a way that Cristobal's didn't. Cristobal's family kidnapped and tortured him with the same kind of air quotes therapy conservatives are trying to bring back in the United States, so when the time came, of course he didn't hesitate to choose the person who loved and supported him.
Cristobal, you're one of us now. Hank, he loves you, you love Hank. As long as you are part of Hank's family, you are part of ours.
Hank's family accepted him for who he is, so when given the same ultimatum, it turned out to be a much more difficult choice. And he tried to hang on to everything and wound up regretting his decision and hating himself immediately afterwards, but when it came down to it, he chose the people who'd always protected and taken care of him. The flawed protagonist who charms the audience into overlooking their awful behavior only to gradually lose our sympathy over the course of the story as said behavior becomes more and more destructive is not exactly a new concept. In our modern era of television, I'd even say it's on the verge of being overdone.
Oh, I didn't mean the verge.
But nevertheless, Barry was such a unique feeling character experience. It was sharp and witty, it says exactly what it sets out to say, then knew exactly when to end, and when the final credits rolled, I was honestly pretty bummed because I just had the sense that I wasn't going to find another show like this anytime soon. And then I saw you.
Well, hello there. Who are you? Based on your vibe, student. Your blouse is loose. You're not here to be ogled, but those bracelets, they jangle. You like a little attention. Okay, I bite. There you were with your books and your sunshine. So close, but worlds away. You're whimsical and artsy. You don't like things that go together too perfectly. You find beauty in the flaws, unexpected pairings. You're deep, reverent, rooted, yet adventurous.
Based on the novel series by Caroline Kepnes, You follows rare book dealer, hopeless romantic, and serial killer Joe Goldberg on a 5-season quest for true love. The show premiered on Lifetime in 2018 and ran for 1 year before moving to Netflix, and if You hadn't begun the same year as Barry and aired over pretty much the same period of time, you would not be able to convince me one of these shows hadn't drafted off the other. Both center around quirky, oddball protagonists who we see doing these horrible, evil things, but whose behavior the audience kind of overlooks for a little while because they're entertaining or sympathetic or seem to have motives we can relate to. And both shows hit some eerily similar plot points. Like, there's a pocket episode of Barry where he breaks into this guy's house to kidnap him, but like in a super chill way, and when they walk into his living room, we suddenly see all these Taekwondo trophies and medals all over the walls. And the next thing you know, Ronnie's kicking the shit out of him, and then his daughter comes home after we think he's dead, and she turns out to be some kind of feral ninja who also just fucks Barry right up. And it reminds me of this weird scene in the second season of You where Joe is trying to abduct his ex-girlfriend, but he accidentally breaks into the wrong apartment and gets beaten unconscious, then tied up by this, like, BDSM ninja woman. And both of these incidents are just so random and so out of tone with the rest of their series. Both shows have very similar creative philosophies as well. They both express similar themes about abuse and gaslighting. They both reveal their hands after the midway point by having their main character grow a beard and scare the living shit out of everyone. And they both have these really poetic, metatextual endings that were massively underappreciated by audiences. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. We don't actually know that Joe is a killer when we first meet him. We think he's just a stalker whose behavior you might not necessarily realize is dangerous. I mean, looking up someone's socials, that's just standard dating practice in the information age. Does he steal her cell phone? Yes. Does he masturbate outside of her apartment? Yes. Does he kidnap her ex and lock him in a Hannibal Lecter cage in the basement of his bookstore? Yes. Like Barry, Joe is a narcissist who idealizes people based off what he thinks they could represent for his own life. Aside from his love of books and, enhanced people watching, Joe doesn't really have any interests or hobbies. Unlike the women he stalks, he doesn't have an artistic outlet for most of the series. He doesn't have any friends or family to speak of. He's not wealthy or particularly athletic. He is very much just your average Joe. And I think this is both why he so easily charms people, the audience included, and why all the women he fixates on are creators or artists of some kind. Joe loves literature, but he doesn't start writing himself until the final season. He locks creative women in the cage he uses for rare books because he's trying to own them in the same way.
Beck, in the end, the cage was a good thing for me. I'm hoping it'll be the same for you. Look, hence, typewriter, paper, no distractions. It's the low-tech writer's retreat you always wanted.
When he locks Beck in the cage at the end of the first season, we switch to her point of view as she writes her story, because this is her manipulating Joe the same way he manipulates the audience. He's trying to convince her that she loves him too much to go to the authorities, and she's trying to convince him of the same thing. She describes Bluebeard and Prince Charming as two sides of the same person, both to set up a convincing enough frame job of Dr. Nicky to fool Joe, and to give him the leeway to think that a reasonable person could buy into his actions being those of an extreme romantic.
From every boy masquerading as a man that you let into your body, your heart, you learned you didn't have whatever magic turns a beast into a prince. You surrounded yourself with the girls you'd always resented, hoping to share their power, and you hated yourself, and that diminished you even more. And then, right when you thought you might just disappear, he saw you. And you knew somewhere deep it was too good to be true, but you let yourself be swept because he was the first strong enough to lift you. Now in his castle you understand Prince Charming and Bluebeard are the same man. And you don't get a happy end unless you love both of him.
When Beck turns the tables on him and Joe winds up locked in the cage, we think the horror on his face is fear of going to prison, but the truth is he's devastated because Beck failed his test. This was the point where he realized she was not going to be the person who loved him in that overwhelming, unconditional way that would make up for his childhood and his place in the world, which was also when he decided she was not going to be walking out of that basement. Season 2 begins with Joe running to Los Angeles after his ex-girlfriend, the infamous Candace, tracks him down and reveals herself to be alive after all. He lands on the West Coast and tries to vanish into the LA sprawl, pledging to turn over a new leaf and not fall back into the old patterns of behavior that sent him running from New York.
You're Will Bettelheim, LA newbie.
Yeah, that's me. Who is protecting her? No, she is not my problem.
Except we quickly realize Joe's not as recovered from those old habits as he'd like to believe, as the new job and apartment he got are situated so he can spy on the better half of a pair of twins, Love and 40 Quinn. Oh, and he also built another goddamn cage, and he's got some guy named Will in it while he's using his identity. A lot of the conflict for the first half of the season revolves around Joe insinuating himself into the Quinns' lives while trying to think of a way to set Will free that won't come back to haunt him. He eventually does take the trust plunge, barely, and lets Will out of the cage. Unfortunately, Candace has tracked him down by this point and is fucking with him through the Quinns by convincing 40 to adapt Beck's memoir into a film. Joe also kills a famous, PDF file to protect Ellie, the little sister of his landlord and eventual booty call. Delilah, the landlord, gets suspicious because she's an entertainment journalist who was already looking into the guy. She starts snooping around Joe's place, finds his storage unit, and bing bang boom, Delilah's in the cage.
You're gonna be in another 16 hours.
You're leaving again?
Oh, what the fuck are those? No.
No. They're time release. There's a timer. Watch. I'll set it to 3 seconds. And when it's up, see, they unlock automatically. So you eat, then we cuff you to the table, and then we set the timer to go off when I am on my way out of the city. After that, you're free.
Determined for things not to end with a dead body again, Joe writes a farewell letter to Love and starts making his plans to blow town. But 40, who aside from being rich is also a bit of a maniac, has them kidnapped and locked in a hotel room until they finish his script. He also doses both of them with like an absurd amount of LSD without telling Joe, so the narrative gets a little disjointed and trippy after this. 40 taps into the universal consciousness or something because he somehow puts together the entire story of what happened between Joe, Beck, and Dr. Nicky in the first season, sans the detail that Joe's the killer. Joe himself keeps having visions of blood appearing and disappearing on his hands, which we begin to suspect might not be entirely metaphorical by the end of the episode when he gets back to the storage unit and finds Delilah with her throat slashed. Joe spends most of the next episode, we think, deluding himself with the notion that anyone else could have possibly found the storage unit and killed Delilah.
I wouldn't have done this. I worked so hard for you, Love. This couldn't have been me.
You'd be dead before you kissed the girl.
He was the only one who knew this was here. I took his name. Caged him. I mean, revenge wouldn't be out of the question. Is that what happened? Some Henderson crazy followed me to the cage, slit Delilah's throat because she showed them who he really was. You know when you pick up a spider and you bring it outside because you want it to live? But let's say when it's in your hand, it dies anyway, and you don't know if it's your fault.
But it was in your hand?
Well, no, it's an imperfect metaphor. But the point is you wanted it to live.
She's never left me alone this long before. I know something happened to her.
You don't know that.
She was pulling away from me. I could tell. Everybody wants to get away from me.
Don't ever think that. I know what you see, Love. A good man. But I have my doubts.
Eventually, Candace turns up, finds Joe with the body, then pepper sprays the shit out of him and locks him in the cage. And frankly, the series could have ended there if she'd just called the cops. I mean, Yu considers American law enforcement as corrupt and incompetent as Barry, but he is literally locked in a cage with the murder victim. The case is idiot-proof. But instead, she calls Love, because she wanted to prove her point about Joe or something, who, for his own part, seems to have actually come around to the realization that a cage is pretty much where he belongs. That is, until Love shows up, stabs Candace in the throat, and reveals that, actually, she killed Delilah.
What the fuck?
This is when we find out that she'd been stalking Joe the same way he stalks other people. She used her family money to hire PIs and look into his past. She found his storage unit and the cage and the box filled with her panties and used tampons, but instead of being rightfully horrified like Beck, she's kind of flattered. And when she reveals all of this to Joe, his immediate reaction is like, "Ew, you're a murderer? What the hell's the matter with you? Get away from me, you sick bitch!" And when she realizes that he's rejecting her pretty much for being exactly like he is, Love decides he's gonna stay in the cage until he rethinks his attitude.
I think I finally understand what Beck went through. It is a lot to process.
As soon as he finds out he wasn't the one who killed Delilah, Joe's moment of self-reflection vanishes like a snuffed candle, and suddenly all he wants is his freedom. So he decides he's gonna pull a Beck. Basically convince Love that he's so in love with her that he can overlook her killing two people and locking him in a cage. And because Love is exactly like him, it works. The scene where she opens the door mirrors exactly that scene at the end of the first season, when Joe opens the cage door, then notices the missing typewriter key just before Beck stabs him with it.
Joe?
No! No, I'm pregnant!
This moment is super jarring because it's the first time you really see Joe do something violent to a woman. We know he's a murderer, but before this our perspective always cuts away just before we see him use his physical size and strength to attack a woman. The camera cuts out right before he clocks Peach with the rock, then later it pans up while they're wrestling over her gun. We go from Joe confronting Delilah in the storage unit to her waking up in the cage with a bloody bandage on her head. Same thing with Beck in the first season. Even with Candace, when we actually see him chase her down and knock her unconscious, the camera work and Joe's constant gaslighting-ass reactions make it seem like a situation that just got out of his control. Rather than him tying her up, driving her out to a deserted place in the middle of the night, bashing her head against a root, and then burying her. But his movements are so fast and deliberate here, there's no hesitation or pretense of confusion or panic on his face. Joe is completely disconnected from any feelings of affection he had towards Love at this point, because the second that idealized image he had shattered, her value to him ceased altogether. The only thing that redeemed her, and thus saved her in that moment, was being pregnant. Because Joe never saw Love as a person, so much as an archetype, and now she could be that again. He could see the story in her again. Though I think the belief that their baby was going to be a girl was a critical part of that story for him. Because Joe wouldn't be able to idealize a boy in the same way as this pure, helpless thing that would always need his protection and eternally justify his violent and obsessive nature. Then 40 gets killed because of him, and Joe realizes that he and Love are going to be stuck together forever. The season ends with them moving to the suburbs, which Joe describes as a new type of cage, but declares his intention to serve his time, viewing it as a kind of penance, and vows to be the sort of responsible man that his new family needs. Though in the final shot he's staring through the fence at one of their neighbors, his internal monologue indicating that the cycle of stalking and obsession has begun again. Now, what I really like about Season 3 is how it kind of inverts the dynamic through which modern cinema typically deals with the American suburbs. There have been roughly 1.5 million movies, novels, songs, and television shows over the past 50 years or so about the dark and sinister underbelly of suburban Americana. And while the wealthy San Francisco Bay suburb Joe and Love settle into is depicted as vapid and narcissistic, a cultural wasteland even, it's Joe and his wife who are really the sinister presence, the ones hiding a dark secret.
We are just the nice, normal neighbors next door.
We begin pretty much where the last season left off, with Joe creeping on the neighbor lady, who, as it turns out, is throwing some serious DTF energy right back at him. Unfortunately for her, Love picks up on this, and even less fortunately, also found the panty box Joe was keeping on her in their garage. So, like she do, Mrs. Quinn Goldberg lures the home-wrecking tramp to the cellar of her new bakery and gives her the old axe to the neck right there at the end of the season opener.
Joe,
What's wrong?
I think we need to go to couples therapy.
Season 3 is all about marriage and how partnerships are sustained after the euphoria of that initial discovery and honeymoon phase wears off. Disposing of the body together, Joe and Love are forced to confront the now undeniable issues in their marriage and the compromised position it's putting their family in. So they go to couples therapy and build a new cage in the basement of Love's bakery together. But they both stash a key inside of it, behind the other's back, because though they are both making an effort now, the thing that connects them is also the reason they cannot trust each other. They're both fucking murderers! Sherry and Carrie Conrad were an amazing mirror to reveal the flaws in Love and Joe's marriage. Sherry is that very frustrating millennial woman who's still trying to be Regina George in her 30s, and she's married to this cartoonishly solipsistic squirrel murderer who's kind of giving like blue pill golden one.
Look at my dick.
But as we get to know them, we see they really do have a more solid relationship than Love and Joe, and the reason is that they have a shared vision, so no matter what happens, they're always going to be on the same side, always moving in the same direction, unlike Joe and Love, who are trying to manipulate each other towards different ends, which is how they wind up getting out of the cage. Sherry realizes that Love and Joe don't trust each other, so she's tearing the place apart, turning everything upside down, and Carrie spots the key Love hid in a jar of flour. So if you didn't catch that, Love's key is cooperation. That scene where the orgy goes south and Joe is trying to take their temperature to figure out if they overheard Love yelling about the murders was great, and I love how Sherry realizes the direction things are going and just makes the call. And Carrie immediately does what she says. He doesn't put on some "not without you, babe" masculine posturing, because he understands that she knows what to do and trusts her, and she knows that if one of them gets out, it's the best chance at both of them getting out. Even the scene where he hits her with a ricocheted bullet and then she takes the gun and shoots him right in the leg is reflective of this thing that can happen with married couples or partners who've been together so long they're basically family, where your partner will do something that hurts you and you feel this almost overwhelming drive to even the score, but then if you do, you immediately feel like shit about it because whatever that score evening meant, the result is that you hurt someone you love. This look on Sherry's face when she's offering Carrie Love's little souffle or whatever that is, like a peace gesture, is so real and so funny. Love and Joe's marriage was put to the test when they moved into their suburban cage, and they failed, but Sherry and Carrie overcame their trial, and it only made their bond stronger. I love that brief cameo they get in the final season, too.
He's the crazy one. Oh, pour yourself another glass, Dottie. Your darling baby girl was a psychopath, and she was the one that locked me.
Locked us.
These two.
Me and my beloved here in a damn lucite cage to die.
To die.
We wrote a whole ass New York Times bestseller about it.
Link in bio, people.
Suppose I'll take the support where I can get it.
And that was another almost conspicuous similarity between Barry and you, the way they both had this arc in the later seasons where all the survivors and loved ones of the people Barry and Joe hurt come back to cause trouble for them. While the Conrads are breaking out of their cage together, the Quinn Goldbergs are trying to kill each other in theirs.
You know, here's what I need you to know about James. My mom was right. I did kill him. But I didn't mean to. It was my first time using it. And the dosage was too high when ingested.
What dosage was too high?
Aconite. It's a paralytic. I just wanted to stop him. Keep him in one place long enough so that we could talk it through.
You wanted to paralyze him.
Exactly. Yeah. Temporarily. Now, you don't have to worry. This time I'm letting it absorb through the skin.
Oh, no. No.
Do I need to point out that none of this would be happening if you hadn't grabbed a weapon?
Love tested Joe with the poison knife handle the same way Joe tested Beck in the first season, again recalling the idea that she really is just like him. But synchrony is not the same as synergy, and this commonality is the very thing that makes them dangerous to each other. Love originally intended to kill Mary Ann, the woman Joe had an affair with, in front of him, but she changes her mind at the last second after seeing Mary Ann's daughter and decides to kill Joe instead. But right as she's about to slash his throat, Joe surprises her with a needle full of the same poison she used to paralyze him.
Friends and neighbors. I'd like to thank you for welcoming my family with open arms, but you didn't.
I think I've seen this film before, and I didn't like the ending. You're not my homeland anymore, so what am I defending now? You were my town, now I'm in exile seeing you out. I think I've seen this film before.
The song that plays while Joe is staging the scene and forging Love's suicide note is Exile, sung by Taylor Swift and Bob Iver. And we come in on the lyrics, I think I've seen this film before, and I didn't like the ending. You're not my homeland anymore, so what am I defending now? The song is about a couple who broke up after repeatedly trying and failing to make things work, and both of their versions of events sound reasonable, but it's clear their relationship failed because they lacked the kind of mutual love language the Conrads have. Repeating the words, I think I've seen this film before, as he drags Love's body into the kitchen also evokes the idea that this is a pattern for Joe, which we've now seen play out multiple times.
The rest of Joe Goldberg's body was never found, but it was presumed butchered, or worse. Love Quinn became the Mrs. Lovett of Madre Linda. Once the nausea passed, people were ravenous for her tragic family history, her quasi-feminist revolt against upper-class hypocrisy. A bit of a folk hero. More famous, even, than Guinevere Beck. Marriage almost ruined both of us, but we escaped. Maybe the scars in our hearts make them stronger.
Nick? Nick.
Que retombe la poussière et ma voix. J'attendrai que fonde
All I know, mon amour, is I'll search the world if I have to. I will find you.
The final shot of season 3, where Joe disappears into the crowd in Paris, is a reference to the end of Silence of the Lambs, which in this context has two meanings. First, it symbolizes Joe breaking out of his suburban cage, leaving his family behind to go and pursue what he really wants. But there's also a much darker message being conveyed here. Before she dies, Love tells Joe that she was his perfect match. And it's true. Love is the one woman in this show who you really can't fault Joe for killing, and not just because she was about to exsanguinate him on their dining room floor. Love was completely out of her mind and never met a problem she didn't want to solve with a sharp end. But she was also the best wife and partner that someone like Joe could hope for. She accepts everything about him. She let him build his cage underneath her bakery. She has a wealthy family who could cushion him from legal consequences. She's a gourmet chef. She's good looking and caring. She fucks like a wild animal. Love Quinn was the whole package, and the only thing she wanted from Joe was the same kind of single-minded, obsessive dedication that she had for him. Joe can't be faulted for killing Love. His fault was in not loving her. Because if he couldn't make it work with her, he's not going to be able to make it work with anybody, which means this cycle that ends with him standing over a woman's dead body is just going to keep repeating itself until he's either dead or locked up. When Joe declares his intention to search the world for Marianne, we're not seeing a romantic questing after his true love. This is a serial killer hunting his next victim. Now, a lot of Season 4 plays out in a kind of non-linear way. When we pick up again, Joe's living in London under a new identity and teaching literature at a university. We get the resolution of his search for Marianne through flashbacks, which we later find out are partially inaccurate as Joe's narration has become increasingly unreliable. You might think, on your first watch through the 4th season, that Joe's fixation is the Charlotte Ritchie character, Kate Lockwood. And in a certain sense this is true, but there's also a lot more to it than just that. The you that Joe is speaking to in his narration this season is the mysterious stalker sending him untraceable texts and leaving dead bodies in and around his flat. They call it a flat in England because they're uncreative and disgusting. Dubbed the Eat the Rich killer for their targeting of the social elites, this person is eventually revealed to be Rhys Montrose, a local celebrity and candidate for mayor who grew up poor but became famous after the discovery that his father was a member of the aristocracy. But then there's this Tyler Durden reveal about 2/3 of the way through the season, where it turns out the Rhys Joe has been talking to is actually a figment of his imagination, which we find out right after he murders the real one.
But not before a shocking amount of military-grade bull torture.
When Joe eventually uncovers his signature stalker box, it's filled with personal items belonging to the real Rhys Montrose, including a used gym towel, a bag of nail clippings, and a heavily tagged and annotated copy of his autobiography. But it's not because he wants Rhys, it's because he wants to become Rhys.
Have you heard of this writer? Rhys Montrose?
I think everyone in Europe has heard of him.
He's made some mistakes. Yeah, he's done some bad things, but he changed. Now everybody wants him to run for mayor. I'm just saying it kind of inspires me.
Joe obsessed with Rhys because he was envious of his story. He saw someone who grew up with nothing, just like him, but who eventually discovers they are literally entitled to more. The show is vague about what his mistakes were, but it's implied that Rhys had some kind of shady past, which people have forgiven him for because of his compelling story and the adversity he's overcome. And now he's rewarded with the wealth, power, and admiration that Joe covets.
You need someone to take care of you. So you can write, be free, happy. Not someone like Joe, an and his financial limitations.
Joe isn't killing rich people out of some sense of class justice. He's doing it because he's envious of what they have. And when he's trying to find his stalker in the 3rd episode, he convinces himself that following Kate will lead him to this person. Now, the person sending Joe those messages just turned out to be a figment of his imagination, but it took the form of Reese Montrose, the person he was actually stalking. And what Reese represents here is the idealized life that Joe believes he deserves.
Obviously, I'm not going to kill Kate, but is she your next target? The last thing I need is playing bodyguard to the Ice Witch who hates me. Keep it generic, non-committal. Kate won't be a problem. But if your eyes are on her, mine have to be too. I go where she goes, and I find you.
In other words, this is Joe acknowledging indirectly that he sees Kate as the pathway towards life-changing money and power. Wealth disparity and information technology being what they are right now, I don't think there's ever been a greater awareness of class, the inefficiencies of capitalism, and the unfairness of having the technology and resources to take care of people but refusing to allocate them for the purpose. One hopes that having this much unharnessed passion across both sides of the political spectrum will lead to some kind of positive change, but we'll have to wait and see. However, something it's already led to, and has always led to, is the rise of grifters and charlatans who tap into that resentment to amass power and wealth for themselves, as well as angry people who just want something to lash out at. Mr. Mooney being a former Soviet prison guard is an interesting detail here. The Soviet Union was something that began with all of the best intentions, and like America, its stated goals were laudable, but also like America, its methodology turned it into something pretty monstrous, and nowhere was that more evident than in the prison system. Joe's darkest, most violent impulses take on this external persona because these are the parts of himself that he cannot reconcile with what he considers to be his fundamental ethos, a good man who protects women.
I cut you out of me, you egomaniac animal. This will never be me, ever. I am making good and sure of it. Now please get the fuck out of my way!
You and Kate have a future. No, we don't.
Of course you do, or not? Because I will
Kill her.
It's not about Kate, is it? It's us. Despite all I've ever done for you. You despise me. All I ever wanted was to make you happy.
And it ends with a corpse in the trunk of my car. Over and over. I can't do that again. We did what we did for Kate. I'm done.
No. We can figure this out, you and me. You and I, we can do anything together. I'm alive for you. Why can't you see that? Why can't you see me the way I see you? I love you!
Joe throws Reese off the bridge first, then dives after him, and his first thought upon hitting the water is how true the aphorism is that everyone who jumps immediately regrets it. He walks back his realization about Kate, and as he reflects over his life comes to a new realization, that his desire for love is more about something he wants for himself than it is about any of the individual women he's fixated on, finishing with the words, "That's all that matters. You. Just you." This represents his desire to live, the raw survival instinct overcoming his rationality, which is what allows the two halves of his personality to reconcile as his life flashes before his eyes and Joe sees himself in the fashion of a true narcissist as nothing but a helpless child. When he comes out of the water, he's a completely different person, in every sense of the word. He's more confident in himself and more at ease with what he's doing. The anxiety and rationalizations that previously characterized his thought process are gone.
Tom Lockwood was right. You can come home again. All you need is Kate plus a cybersecurity team, a squadron of publicists, and Cynthia, scrub search results, hack news archives, bribe the Madre Letter chief of police, all to support this simple, true story of Joe Goldberg.
Joe never really wanted to become a better person, he just wanted to be seen as one. And now that he has access to the Lockwood fortune, he's gotten that without ever really needing to alter his behavior.
I have so many tools now. Sure, killing's one of many, but it's certainly not a one-size-fits-all solution. She's here to change the world. Though the killing part's also much easier now that I'm honest with myself about it. I'm just here to help.
When Joe's cutting up Malcolm's body at the beginning of the season, it's to the Cardi B song, I Like It, which opens with the words, I like dollars, I like diamonds, I like stunting, I like shining, I like $1 million deals, where's my pen, bitch I'm signing. This represents both the climb to riches that we see Joe make by the end of the season and the pride he takes in what he's doing. As we hear the words, I like it, sung over and over while he's got blood flying off a circular saw up into his face, the audience is pretty much forced to concede all holdouts at this point that Joe Goldberg genuinely likes killing people. That's why he does it so much, which is why he's gotten so good at it. All said and done, Malcolm and his monster dong are packed and wrapped in a few black hefties inside the time it takes a security guard to finish the second half of a soccer game. And since we're kinda tickling around the edges of it there, I think this is a good place to step back for a moment and talk about the character who is probably Joe Goldberg's single biggest inspiration.
She also believes that you killed a woman and that you're basically Dexter.
No, not that one. But it is referenced in that episode.
Who's Candace?
Amy? Adam, that's why I'm here.
I see. And you were going to...
That's not what it looks like. I was supposed to creep in and surprise her. In bed.
Eh?
She wanted me to tie her up.
Eh?
What the hell are you doing, man?
She rejected me. Me, Frank, me, the coolest guy in the history of this goddamn school. Oh, they're all gonna pay. They're all gonna pay the ultimate prize.
Whoa!
Oh.
Dude, what's all that stuff you're grabbing?
Tools! Duct tape, zip ties, and gloves. I have to have my tools.
Well, why do you have a bunch of, like, weird tools in a hidden compartment in your car?
Fetish shit. I like to bind. I like to be bound.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia should pretty much be the first thing out of anyone's mouth when you encounter one of these idiots who like to pretend that popular progressive media can't be edgy or transgressive. Dennis Reynolds is a rapist, and quite possibly a murderer, and his whole character is a massive criticism of rape culture and toxic masculinity, and the similarities to Joe go way beyond Dennis turning his bedroom into a cage.
Why is no one answering me?
I don't even think they can hear you. Is there a chance your brother would have soundproofed his room for some reason?
Oh no. Oh, God. Yeah, there is. Oh, Dennis, you psychopath. How long have I been locked in here?
Welcome, Sexual Conquest. As previously discussed, you've pressed the button on the alarm clock, signifying your permission to begin the game.
Oh.
A digital copy of your thumbprint has been sent as your e-signature, confirming your full consent for whatever may happen to you.
Oh, God.
They're both narcissistic control freaks who consider themselves romantics, but in actuality hate women. They both get off on becoming other people, they're both status obsessed, they both abandon their children, they very likely both killed their first wives and get away with it. They share habits and mannerisms, they look exactly alike. I'd even argue that Joe could have a mnemonic system he uses on women, just like the infamous Dennis system from Sunny. It'd be like, just bump into them, online research, separate from friends, examine effects, pursue vigorously, hold in cage. Joe's signature move, where he looks at a woman and comes up with her whole backstory, is flat out pulled from Dennis in The Gang Beats Boggs. Go watch that episode and tell me I'm wrong. Really, I don't think an analysis of You can be complete without an extensive dive into this inspiration. There have been articles written about, oh my god, okay, yes, obviously we're gonna talk about Dexter.
Shut up, cunt. Hello, whore.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Tonight's the night.
Man, Dexter Dexter went so hard off the rails in those final few seasons, a lot of people forget just how good the show was in the beginning. I did watch Resurrection, and it was okay. Definitely better than New Blood. I got like 3 episodes into that shit before I tapped out. You know what bugged me about Resurrection, though? It was the CGI blood. Blood had a really important role in the original series. Dexter was the blood guy, both in that it was his job to analyze blood spatter and in how the violent impulses that define him all stem from the memory of being left in his mother's blood as a baby. The camera treated blood like it was the star of the show, with these creative, loving shots that almost make it look beautiful, the way Dexter sees it, reminding us of both life and death and how these two infinities are just a leak away from each other. A lot of people consider the show to have gone downhill after the 4th season, but to be honest, season 5 is my personal favorite. Showing the aftermath of losing Rita was a very necessary beat in Dexter's story, and Julia Stiles made such a surprising but natural addition to the show as Lumen Pierce. Rita was always just the mask that Dexter wore to seem normal. After a while, he became used to the disguise, grew attached, even came to love her, but he never could have been honest with her about who he is. Rita would have been horrified and disgusted if she ever really saw Dexter. He had more of a genuine connection with her children than he ever did with her. We saw that when they broke up in the 2nd season. They would have been out of each other's lives, but Dexter kept being drawn back by the kids. Lumen was somebody Dexter had a real connection with in a way he never could have had with Rita. Watching them form this mutually organic attachment to each other was honestly my favorite arc in the entire series. Seeing Dexter be the nurturer to someone, which was what both of them needed in that moment, and Lumen coming out of this horrific situation that made her uniquely receptive to Dexter's hobby, it all just worked really well. Dexter jumping into bed with a new person so soon after losing Rita did feel kinda quick. Ditto Lumen becoming intimate with a man right after her experience. Which is why her character should have been around for more than just 1 season. I think Deb should have found out about Dexter right here at the end of the 5th season, when she caught the two of them disposing of Jordan Chase's body. They should have skipped season 6 altogether, and then Lumen should have taken the role of Hannah McKay in those final 2 seasons and raised Harrison after Dexter disappeared. I do love the final shot of the series, just Dexter sitting there with his beard glowering into the camera. He's gone from being a quirky, charming weirdo to just a scary weirdo. Dexter didn't know when or quite how to end, and then when it did, people weren't happy with it, so they kept going back and giving it more endings and then walking back those endings, and what a mess it all just turned into. Which is another thing I respect and appreciate about both Barry and you, the way they each told the story they set out to tell, ended on their own terms, and ended well.
I've been living on a kibbutz in Israel, where I learned selflessness and true happiness.
I really come to appreciate the ending of Barry more and more every time I watch the final season. It conveys such a grim but undeniably poetic view of morality and consequences while bringing the show's themes of revenge and accountability around and tying them together with the elegance of a ribbon married to a knotted muscle.
Scene 2. You shit in a pie.
So, relief?
No, I think it's a little more nuanced than that. I think it's about vengeance. Okay. And then, scene 3, whoopsie, you eat the shit pie. Comeuppance. He who seeks revenge digs 2 graves, Barry. It's a tale as old as time.
Barry decides to take accountability in the last moment, then is immediately killed, but he's rewarded by his son and the whole rest of the world thinking he's a hero, which was what he wanted all along. Whereas Kuzenow chooses revenge and winds up going to prison for Barry's crimes.
Oh, wow.
Now, I don't think Barry had ever actually been shot before this.
Have you ever been shot? I have. It's like crazy painful.
So I take his final words as an acknowledgement of what Hank said in the first episode, that getting shot is crazy painful. Kuzenow shoots him in the chest and he's like, oh wow, that's what the thing I've been doing to other people feels like? There's also a distinct theme, especially in the last few episodes, of characters having undergone some kind of trial or gauntlet or period of enlightenment only to have their psychological or spiritual gains toppled by some critical flaw too deep in their id to reprogram. Barry escapes from prison, evades the police, even convinces Sally to run with him and start a family. He has everything a controlling narcissist could want, but then he heard Kuzenow was consulting on a film that would tell their story from his perspective and he breaks cover to go after him. Like many a wealthy American with no genetic connection to the Middle East, Cousineau found spirituality on stolen land and, somewhat atypically, really seemed to have grown into a better person. He reconnected with his son, again, and had even been gaining a lot of popular support for his public opposition to the film. But then just the idea of Daniel Day-Lewis coming out of retirement to play him is so tempting to his narcissism, he immediately lets go of all his hard-won principles as if they'd never existed. Even Moss, who'd been so patient all those years, finally had Barry in his creepy torture garage, but he loses him because he just had to go after Cousineau as well. There's creative commentary in You similar to Barry's, though the focus is on writing rather than acting. Beck was a novelist, and there was a Misery vibe to the way Joe stalks, kidnaps, and eventually murders her, but along the way forces her to write this last great work. Then he moves to LA in the second season, and there's commentary about screenwriting, both within the studio system and the indie film scene. Sherry Conrad had a lifestyle blog, which she eventually turns into a self-help book for married couples, and Joe started fixating on Reese Montrose after reading his memoir, to say nothing of the inferiority complex he developed as an American, living and teaching in a country with a literary tradition that goes back over 1,000 years.
London's not so bad. A city of art, theater, books,
Jonathan!
and the occasional douchebag.
The American.
Bloody hell.
Is that
Vampire romance.
Nadia?
I'm embarrassed for you.
The fifth and final season of You is about bad writing, specifically the kind of bad writing that becomes very popular with inexperienced readers because it speaks directly to our base desires in a very unsubtle way. Sex, power, wealth, revenge. Joe starts writing himself this season, his output consisting purely of fantasy scenarios in which he tortures and kills people who are causing him problems. These soon become quasi-erotica as he finds his newest fixation, a woman named Bronte, and eventually vampire erotica as he incorporates not only Bronte but her tastes and preferences into his work. Louise Flannery, aka Bronte, is as much of a narcissist as Joe. She thinks she's the main character of everyone's story, but in a way where she wants to be the one acted upon rather than the primary actor. When she and Joe start sleeping together, it's kinda 50 Shades, and the fiction he very ham-fistedly bases on their relationship sounds evocative of Twilight or the Sookie Stackhouse novels or any of the other 1,000,012 stories my generation grew up with about sexy vampires and the women who love them.
What are you, a vampire?
Come on, show me your teeth.
Even the taser burns Bronte leaves on Joe's neck look like vampire bites, and I think there's more to that symbolism than just a passing jab at teen lit. Bronte takes Joe to a live poetry reading in the third episode, and this guy Clayton says that all new people have to read something, that everybody there is reading their own work, which he describes as bleeding on the stage.
People are opening up veins in here, you know? No vampires.
Yeah, we were just leaving.
A vampire, then, would be someone who only consumes the creativity of others and doesn't write or make anything of substance themselves. Bronte was Beck's TA, and she took her pen name from a family of creative women. But by and large, she gives the impression of someone who wants to be a writer more than someone who wants to write. She acts like she's out to get justice for Beck, but in reality, she's just trying to center herself within the narrative of Beck's tragedy.
I once crashed a stranger's funeral.
When she's telling her story to the cops, she's more focused on describing her personal experience of things, her own thoughts and feelings, than she is on relaying the actual events as they happened. And, in fact, lets her own feelings take precedent over what really happened when she blows up the whole plan and tells them Joe killed Clayton to protect her. I love that the chick from Baby Reindeer is out here in another Netflix show about another violent stalker. Anyway, Bronte being the last person to give up on Joe, even though she went in with a pretty good idea of who and what he is, kind of represents some subtle shade directed at the audience by the showrunners. Specifically the portions of the audience who refuse to see what the series has been showing them for years, that Joe is a gaslighting villain whose point of view cannot be trusted. The show is telling us that if you're still defending Joe by the 5th season, then you have no understanding of layered storytelling, and the only way to get the message through your thick skull is to bludgeon you over the head with it.
What makes you think this time will be any different? I killed your friend on camera, and here I am.
Here you are, Joe. Running. Scared. You know how I know it'll be different? Because I've turned on you, Joe. And if I can wake up, so can the world.
The final season brings us face to face with Joe's ugliness in a very direct way that could, on the surface, feel unsubtle, but I think is actually very subtle when you look at the execution of this being a mask in its final gradual stages of coming off.
You killed my sister.
So what can I do?
In this same scene, he tells Kate that if he goes down for Clayton's murder, he'll make sure that she's implicated in his other crimes, killing Bob at her behest, framing Nadia. Then in the next moment, he's trying to claim ownership of Henry, not even realizing how hypocritical that is when he was just threatening to drag Kate to prison with him, which would effectively leave Henry to grow up in the system, just like he did.
I love him, he's mine!
No, you don't. You think you do, but you never have. You don't even see him. To you, he is just an extension of yourself. Same thing my father did to us.
This is another thing he has in common with Barry, who, by all appearances, seems like a very loving and patient father to John. But if you look at the way he parents, John's needs are secondary to the role he plays in servicing Barry's needs. In this case, validating that image of himself as a war hero and a good father. He doesn't buy John the blanket he asks for, but prioritizes the Abraham Lincoln book that he needed to prove his point about nobody having a perfect legacy. To say nothing of the social and psychological burden that moving out to the middle of nowhere puts on his family. The first time we see John, he was getting picked on for not knowing what Call of Duty is. His parents keep him cut off from the cultural touchstones he needs to know to assimilate with his peers. Then, when he starts bonding with that other kid over baseball, Barry traumatizes him all over again by showing him videos of children being killed or injured playing sports. It doesn't matter to Barry if his family is withering and suffering as long as they're effectively serving the role he needs them for.
You gotta honor Dad. Dad's gotta honor you.
What about Mom?
Mom? Sure. Gotta honor Mom.
She cries a lot.
Oh, yes. Yes, she does. But you know what? Like I've said, there's happy cry, and then there's sad cry, and then there's Mom cry, and that can be very loud and scary.
When season 5 starts out, Joe is narrating to himself. He's the you he's doing everything for since he came out of the water in London. It switches to Bronte only after she describes herself to him in the way of a trope.
I'm not your trope, you know. Or like the poor girl to your rich guy or whatever ingenue you're projecting onto me.
What?
We're adults, Joe. We can say the quiet part out loud. I'm a mess, and I don't think I can handle an affair as much as I would enjoy myself.
What have you done?
Please don't make me feel like I'm the asshole here.
Oh, no. I am the asshole. Because you are right. Now I see all of you. The mess, the pain behind the bluster, the ache to connect, breath shallow, cheeks flush. Is that a hair tuck?
By the final episode, she and Joe are trading the narration back and forth, almost like the audience is trapped between competing gravitational pulls as her narcissism vies for dominance with his.
Stand up.
What?
Trust me.
It's Tippy.
I got it. Come on.
Where are you going? Why am I up here?
So I can see you like this. I told you I'd put you at the center of the universe.
This is an interesting scene that shows us how limiting Joe's narcissism is on his perspective. He tells Bronte he's putting her at the center of the universe, but it's really his perspective that he's centering. He's the one laying back with a great view, while she's basically acting as his ornament, as inanimate and without agency as any of the stars behind her. Which, of course, Bronte describes as peak romance because she is shallow and her understanding of romance is as limited by self-absorption as Joe's.
Turns out, you're not the hero of our story. I am.
Run away with me.
And you'll never see me coming.
Sucker, fame fucker, bleeding me dry like a goddamn vampire.
Joe's reading a first edition of Dracula in the penultimate episode because he's a vampire, and Bronte pulled him out of the fire at the end of that episode while leaving Kate for dead because she wanted to be the one to slay the monster. Remember, the publisher she met with said they were more interested in a book about her relationship with Joe than in any fiction she writes. The way You ends with Joe getting his dick shot off feels trite as hell, but it was meant to be. The point of Bronte's character is that she would go for the trite ending, and also that this meaningless act of symbolism would nonetheless have a profound effect on a mass audience whose attention is only as strong as the latest meme is captivating. Like Joe says in the end, maybe the problem is all of you. Endings are tough, especially in stories with flawed or dark protagonists where there might not be an immediate consensus among the audience on what they deserve. The ending of The Sopranos is widely considered to be a masterpiece now, but that shit pissed people off when it first aired. A lot of people thought it was a cop-out, and then there were years and years where fans would argue over whether it was ambiguous or portraying a very specific sequence of events. It's only recently they've settled into a consensus on what it all means. Since I came along, Barry ends with John watching a movie full of lies about what a hero his father was, which itself ends with him being buried in Arlington National Cemetery, where presidents and war heroes are laid to rest. Bill Hader reaching through the screen, slapping you in the face, then screaming "fuck the troops" directly into your ear could not have made it more obvious that the show you just finished was a scathing criticism of Hollywood's role in laundering American war crimes. But some people still manage to miss that. Endings are tough. There was actually quite a lot of poetry in the ending to Dexter. The storm he's sailing into has the same name as his mother, and I really liked the scene where he lowers Deb into the water, wrapped in white, in contrast to all the black garbage bags we've seen him dump over the years. Because of all his victims, he saw her as the innocent one. And then the final scene is so chilling. Everyone wanted to hear him say, "Tonight's the night," and have that iconic theme music play into the credits, but that misses the point. We can't hear Dexter's narration now because he doesn't have that connection to humanity anymore. He doesn't have any connection to humanity now. He's become something we can't understand. I think a lot of the good in that final season was lost on audiences who were fed up with the meandering pace and bizarre creative decisions of the last 3 seasons. Now it's got all kinds of revivals and prequels and sequels and a whole stupid expanded universe, and who knows if it'll ever end.
Dahmerland.
There is another series out of this genre which was denied its ending, as of now at least, and which I honestly think, even in the 3 seasons it had, as incomplete as it was, managed to be better than all of the other shows I covered today, combined. But that is a topic for its own video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again real soon.
Looking like Boo Boo the Food now.